Evening. The May 22nd meeting of the Human Services Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ansello? Here. Ms. Andrews? Ms. Boyce? Mr. Daniele? Here. Ms. Cayley? Mr. Lightfoot? Mr. Michike? Dr. Quattro? Chairwoman Draw?
Here. Is there anyone now signed up for public forum? I know that there is, one person.
There is. When I call your name, please come forward to the podium. You'll have 2 minutes and only 2 minutes in which to address the committee. Please come forward, or please conclude when the buzzer sounds. Our speaker is Alice Berry.
Hi, Alice. Sure.
I can take them.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice.
It's not. Do you want me to hand mine after that? That'd be great. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so good evening. My name is Alice Berry, and I work for Cayuga Centers, which is a not-for-profit organization. We've been providing home-based family therapy services using evidence-based models in Monroe County through contracts with preventive services for the past 10 years. We've provided functional family therapy for 10 years and added multi-systemic therapy in 2006. As an organization, we've had very strong and positive interactions and relationships in the community and positive outcomes with the families that we've been serving. Our statistics over the past few years have been very positive, and we've been able to keep about 91% of the youth who come into our programs from going deeper into the juvenile justice and human services system. Because of our positive work in the community, about a year and a half ago, we were asked by the Director of County Mental Health, Kathy Plum, if we were interested in opening an outpatient mental health facility. We were, and so we went through the process of beginning to open that facility. We did a lot of research in terms of what was the need in the community, having familiarity with the juvenile justice system and the child welfare system. We kind of opened ourselves up to being involved with the mental health system. As we designed the facility, we held a number of focus groups. We basically got the parents that we were working with in our home-based programs. We invited them in to give us information about what they wanted in an outpatient mental health facility. We met with the SWAT Youth Council and asked them, you know, you're recipients of mental health care. What would you like? How should we design this place that we're going to build? And we got a lot of great input. And I think we've designed a facility that's very family-friendly, that is welcoming of the community. Okay, I'm just going to finish in 1 minute. We took a lot of their input in. This place itself is warm and inviting. Our waiting room was modeled after Starbucks because families told us we hate to sit in rooms where all the chairs match and they're lined up in rows. The hours that we're open are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. to really fully be available to the families that need to come in. We have a child watch room on site, so families who, a parent coming in to address their own mental health needs can leave their children in a safe room with a staff member while they address their mental health needs, or if they're there for their adolescent, they can leave their toddlers in that room. We made a point of being on a bus line. The bus stops 20 feet from our front door, and we also have free parking, and those were things that were really important to the community. So I came here today because a couple of members stopped by to visit us and were impressed with the facility and the work that we're doing there. I wanted to thank the county for supporting the work that we've done in our home-based programs over the past 10 years, because that support allowed us to be in a position to be familiar enough with Monroe County and for people to know us well enough to ask us to open the Monroe Youth and Family Center. And I wanted to stop by and make sure you knew about us and to extend an invitation to please stop by at any point in time. I've provided general agency information, just a few talking points, and some pictures of our facility so you could really see what the community members had asked for. So, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Alice. I know that Legislator Boyce and myself had stopped by and you gave us a wonderful tour of the facility, so I will encourage any of the members of this committee or any of the legislators to get in contact with you and come over and stop and take a visit, because it's a wonderful facility. So I thank you, and we'll pass this on. Okay, thank you, Alice. Is there anyone else scheduled to speak tonight?
There's
No?
not.
Anyone else would like to speak? No? So next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have before you the April 24th minutes. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified by any changes by the end of today. And at this time, we have a presentation by Mr. Paul Johnson, the Associate Planner of the Planning and Development Department, and he will now give his brief overview of the 2013 to 2018 Capital Improvement Program as it pertains to the Human Services Committee. And after Mr. Johnson speaks, we will wait until any questions we'll take after the referral is introduced later in this meeting. So, Mr. Johnson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All legislators should have received a copy of the proposed program as submitted by the county executive. This program was reviewed and recommended by the Monroe County Planning Board, and in their review they conducted 3 public information meetings to get public input and comment on this proposed plan. And I would mention that it is just that, a plan for our capital investments over the next 6 years. There are no funding approvals associated with the county legislature's action on the capital improvement program. The first opportunity for funding will come in the form of the capital budget, which will be submitted to the legislature in the fall along with the operating budget, and at that time you'll be asked to approve bonding resolutions for the 2013 projects as they appear in this program. The legislature is required to hold a public hearing, and hopefully we'll schedule that and adopt this program in July. There's one area that is related to the Human Services Committee, and that would be the Monroe Community Hospital Program, which you'll find on page 20 of the document. You will note, if you were to compare this to last year's program, that there have been some changes in the presentation of the projects for the community hospital. This year, we've identified a number of larger projects that probably would have been included in the normal 4 or 5 categories of general improvement projects that you've seen in previous years. But because of the size and the scheduling for these projects, they've been identified as separate, and you'll see them as new projects. The Faith 2 and 3 renovations, the Faith Elevator Control Modernization, and the roadway parking lot resurfacing are new individual projects for this capital program. Likewise, you'll see the other 4 general categories that you've seen in previous programs. The funding for those has been reduced significantly in order to provide, obviously, funding for those individual larger projects. And overall, the total funding for the hospital program is 10% lower than last year's program. And that, Madam Chair, is my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. You'll stick around then for
Yes, I will.
later. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 12-16-170.
Moved by Legislator Boyce, second by Legislator Ansello. Is there any discussion or questions on this? Legislator Lightfoot.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I'd like to say that, again, it's always a privilege and a pleasure to see the Willie Lightfoot Youth Advocate of the Year Awards. Every time that I see this come out, it does my...
At this point, can I just have
Oh.
the maker of the motion? I would like
I'm
to
sorry.
recognize President Adair and just have him
Okay.
give a little spiel on his referral.
Thank you, Madam
President.
Chair. I know I'm sitting over here, and it's kind of hard to see me, but that's okay. I'm pleased tonight to introduce to the committee for approval to go to the full edge the 2012 Youth Awards. We did pretty good this year. I think we have 91 winners this year for the ceremony, and I just wanted to let the legislators know that it was a great year, turnout this year. We had a lot of applications. In fact, some of them we actually had to turn away. That's how many we had. So in the last few years, it's been really steamrolling. And the other thing that I want to remind legislators too is that the The award ceremony is at the community hospital, and it's on June 13th, and it's at 6:30 p.m. I hope everyone will attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And now, I'm sorry, now discussion on this. Legislator Lightfoot.
Yes, thank you, Madam
Sorry
Chairman.
about
And thank you, Mr. President, for, again, such a great program that has been renamed after my father. It's always great to see our constituents be patted on the back for some of the things that they've done in our community. As looking at this, I do want to point out that one of the things noticed here is that a lot of these resolutions that we're posting minors' addresses on these things, and I was wondering if we could amend this to not post people's personal addresses and minors' addresses on these documents. Through you, Madam Chairman, to the administration. So I guess, let me back up here. I'd like to add an amendment to this to not include the private addresses of minors on such public documents as these. Through you, Madam Chairman, if I get a second, I'll speak to the amendment.
Yes, seconded by, moved by Legislator Lightfoot, the amendment is, and seconded by Legislator Andrews. And
You, Madam Chair, it was brought up from some individuals, and we were looking at this as it could be a potential issue. It has not been an issue up until this point in time. However, in lieu of...
yes,
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Could I ask for a brief 5-minute recess at this time?
absolutely.
Thank you.
We're going to recess for 5 minutes, please. Okay, we're back in committee now. We have President Adair.
Chair, I at this time would like to offer an amendment to the amendment. At this point, I would like to offer the amendment that we leave the people's names on it. We eliminate the street addresses. We put the city or the town on there and the legislative district on which the person lives in.
I have an amendment.
That's my amendment. I need a second.
Second. Okay, I have an amendment to the amendment by Legislator Adair and a second to the amendment by Legislator Quattro. So roll call vote on that, please.
Okay. Mr. Ansello? Yes. Ms. Andrews? Yes. Ms. Boyce? Yes. Mr. Daniele? Yes. Chairwoman Draw?
Yes.
Ms. Cayley? Mr. Lightfoot? Yes, sir. Mr. Michike? Yes. Dr. Quattro? Yes. 9-0 passes.
Thank you. Back to the original amendment. The original amendment by Mr. Lightfoot, Legislator Lightfoot, and seconded by Legislator Andrews. May I have a roll call vote on that?
Mr. Ansello? Yes. Ms. Andrews? Yes. Ms. Boyce? Mr. Daniele? Yes. Chairwoman Draw?
Yes.
Ms. Kaylee? Yes. Mr. Lightfoot? Yes. Mr. Michike? Yes. Dr. Quattro? Yes. Okay, 9-0 passes.
Referral passes.
Nope, just the
I'm sorry,
amendment.
amendment passes. Amendment passes. Now back to the original referral. Is there any other discussion on the Willie Lightfoot Awards, Youth Awards? Legislator Cayley.
Thank you. I think Legislator Barker said it earlier about like a sticky point in another meeting. Respectfully, through the chair, if we are amending this publication of names this year, will we be backtracking through past years and redacting the addresses of the minors that were in those prior years, if they are still a minor? Just asking the question.
Mr. Helper?
Would they be able to be taken from the website through the chair if they are published on the website? And the reason I'm asking this is because some of the award recipients that are still minors, you publish the addresses. I realize that this is...
I think the question is answered, and I think it's...
No,
it's
no. I asked specifically about the website.
of the website. I think as it pertains to this year's awards, we've answered that question.
I just want to make sure that the question about the website is answered, and I think it's pertinent because we are actually changing a process here.
Mr. Hoffman? Through the administration?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we aware of the fact that it's still on a website someplace? Is there positive proof to that?
That is...
But
No.
excuse me, Madam Chair, I have the floor.
You do.
My question is, back on it, is I don't believe anybody here at this time knows whether we have that information out on a website. I know it's been published, and there's probably not a whole lot we can do about it before. And it was a good suggestion brought up by Legislator Lightfoot today to do this. But we can certainly not going to have an answer tonight on whether it's out on a website. I mean, I'm certain that the administration, and through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the administration, would they please do a follow-up on it to see if it's out there anywhere on a website?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Respectfully,
I think
let me reframe the question then, respectfully. Through the chair, could we have it checked to find out whether or not in the last 2 or 3 years this particular document of last year or the year before is indeed
think President
available on the website?
that is what President Dare said. Through the administration, we'll check that out. Thank you. Can we vote on this referral now? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item,
Referral 12-178.
moved by Legislator Ansello, second by Legislator Michike. Is there any discussion on this? Legislator Lightfoot.
I always ask this question to you, Madam Chairman. I just want to make sure that I stay consistent with this. When we talk about high-risk populations, could we again define that, please? To you, Madam Chairman, to the administration.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure where the term high-risk population is mentioned. Can someone point it out to me?
Second paragraph, sir, second sentence. Through you, Madam Chairman. It says the purpose of the grant, and then it says to vaccinate high-risk population against hepatitis A.
Madam Chair, with regard to hepatitis B, we are following pregnant women that all get tested for hepatitis B during their pregnancy, and this program does follow up with that population. The vast majority of these women were born outside of the United States in countries where hepatitis B is endemic. So this is a little bit different than some of the way that we use the term high risk for some other issues.
Thank you. That's why I always ask that question, because I always wonder, I know that that can change in time, so thank you.
Any other discussion on that? Legislator Boyce.
Through the chair to Dr. Doniger, can you tell me, is this a program, an optional program, is something required by New York State Health Department?
Madam Chair, as part of the Municipal Health Services Plan, we are required to provide immunization services in our community. It's particularly important for school-age children.
And through the chair, is this going to cover all the county's expenses, or is this only going to cover a portion?
Madam Chair, there is a portion of the budget that is county funded that relates to the immunization program. So 100% of the immunization services are not covered by this grant.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Doniger.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item.
Referral 12-179.
Moved by Legislator Boyce, second by Legislator Quattro. Any discussion? Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, question here. I'm always pleased to see support for the Nurse-Family Partnership, and I know we've been targeting a goal of 300 families or first-time mothers. It seems to be that's what we always seem to work towards, and my question really is there any expectation or hope of growing this program past the 300 during the 5-year period that this grant covers?
Madam Chair, I really am not in a position to prognosticate about that. I guess I can tell you that we don't have any other funding streams that are new that are on the horizon, but we're always eager to learn about them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item.
Referral 12-190.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, second by Legislator Boyce. And is there any discussion? At this point, if there's any discussion, Mr. Johnson is here to answer questions regarding the capital improvement, the proposed. Legislator Cayley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question, just because in looking the budget, the CIP over, not understanding when one piece of information is in one chapter and not in another, and this is specifically through the administration. What is meant by attributable revenues under Monroe Community Hospital, whereas if I looked at MCC, they don't have attributable revenues? This is strictly for my knowledge.
Through the chair, that the attributable revenues is effectively the rates that they charge for state and federal reimbursement.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this? Legislator Cayley.
I guess I forgot what I was going to say. The other part, through the chair, respectfully, with respect to voting on the total capital improvement plan, as I stated earlier in my other committee meeting, I take exception to the wording in the section with regards to MCC and naming the campus choice at the Kodak site. I feel that it's premature at this point to have any campus location.
Legislator Cayley, this has nothing. This is not. That does not pertain to the human services.
Excuse me. Are we voting on the CIP?
We're only discussing. We're discussing.
Well, I'm explaining why I'm going to vote against something that's in there that I'm not.
Well,
So-
it's not pertaining to the Human Services Committee portion of the CIP.
Point of order, she's explaining her vote. She's not asking a question.
We didn't get
She's
to a vote.
allowed
We didn't get to a vote yet.
She's
We were
allowed to
still in
explain her
discussion.
vote.
We
Well,
were
she
still
can
in
explain it
discussion.
during the discussion period, Madam
I didn't
Chairwoman.
ask for a vote yet, so
Well,
we'll wait, okay?
But a lot of times, people explain their votes during discussion period, and this is the point in time to do so.
That's
So
okay.
Legislator
We're
Kaylee
overruled.
Kaylee is
We're-
fully in order to explain her
Any other
vote.
discussion regarding that,
Continue.
regarding the CIP as it pertains to Monroe Community Hospital? Is there any other? There's being none, then we will go to a roll call vote for this referral. So, roll call vote, clerk?
Mr. Ansello? Yes. Ms. Andrews?
Legislator, Chairwoman
If
Draw?
you'd like to explain your vote.
This is a little unusual, but this is where you want me to take time to explain my vote? Because usually we do this under discussion, but since you didn't allow that, I'll take this opportunity to explain my vote. I would just like to echo the sentiments of my colleague. I have no issue as the CIP pertains to MCH. I'm actually pleased to see the breakout and further description of the projects this year. But at this point in time, I do feel it necessary to cast a vote against the CIP as proposed for the reasons that Legislator Kaylee raised. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Boyce? Yes. Mr. Daniele? Yes. Chairwoman Draw?
Yes.
Ms. Kaylee? No. Mr. Lightfoot? No. Mr. Michike? Dr. Quattro? Yes. 6-3.
Item carries. Is there any other unfinished business to come before this committee? Legislator Andrews, and I hope unfinished business is unfinished business.
Chairwoman Draw, could you explain what unfinished business is to me, please?
Sure. Unfinished business is any item that was tabled or referred to the administration, and it can be discussed under as unfinished business. Other lines of questioning are not unfinished business. For example, questions that are just pertaining to things that weren't in referrals are not unfinished business.
Are you reading from somewhere?
Pardon?
Are you reading a definition from somewhere?
I'm reading from a definition that I wrote down for.
Oh, so it's your own definition? It's not from any other source? Just for my own information, so I can better
unfinished
understand.
business.
It's your definition.
It's the definition of legislative Andrews. Where are we going with this?
I'm just asking you for your source. Is it did you create that definition yourself, or are you citing Robert's Rules, the Charter, the Code?
Do we have any unfinished?
Yes, I'm just asking you a question, because you just explained to me what unfinished business is,
That's what unfinished business is in this committee,
in your opinion.
in my committee.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a few things to follow up on information that was given to me from the administration based on questions I asked last month,
Okay, fine.
which I think would fit your definition. Today, we received information regarding the Therapeutic Foster Care Program. My follow-up questions are, and I believe if I read this in conjunction with the memo we received in April, that the cost per day per child for the Catholic Family Center was $84. The cost per day per child for Hillside was $81. And so my question is, now that the county is going to be assuming this responsibility, what will be the cost per day per child for the county? Through you to the administration.
Mr. Helfer.
Madam Chair, I don't have that answer, but I will be glad to provide it to the committee.
Thank you. I would also ask under this item, because in reading the memo provided today, it appears that this program will be transferred to the county starting June 1st, 2012, which is just right around the corner. So I would ask for a status check at our next committee meeting in terms of how that transfer is going.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few other matters to follow up on.
Legislator Andrews, yes.
At our last committee meeting, you directed us to put in writing some questions regarding the public administrator's changed policies. I submitted a letter to you on May 2nd. Some questions, 8 of them were directed to the public administrator, and the other 6 were directed to the administration. So at this point in time, I'd like to discuss those questions.
Mr. Helfer?
So-
I think the administration, Mr. Helfer has an answer on that, where we're going on that.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure what letter is being referred to, what the date of that letter was. Was it addressed to the administration or to the chairwoman of the committee?
The letter was addressed to the chairwoman as well as CC'd to the public administrator and to yourself, Mr. Helfer. But we were directed to direct the questions to you, Mr. Helfer.
Any letters to Mr. Helfer will when you let Legislator Andrews discuss those with you after this committee meeting?
Certainly, Madam Chair. I don't have any additional information to provide at this time, and I would have to go back and review the letter that was sent and make sure that if there is additional information we need to provide, we certainly will provide that response. I apologize for not knowing off the top of my head what the specific questions were.
Okay. So we can touch base after this committee then, or do you want me to read them into the record or just supply you with another copy of the letter?
Madam Chair, I'd be glad to talk after the meeting if that's acceptable.
That's
Thank
fine. Thank you. And then lastly, I have a few questions regarding the information that was provided about childcare. If I can find my notes. I had asked some questions regarding the childcare dollars or facilitated enrollment grant last month, and was also received a response today. A question I haven't, perhaps Mr. Franklin, if it's possible, I don't know if he's here, but I think these would probably best be directed to him, if he is here, or else I'll just attempt to ask them at this point.
I think could you give those letters, the follow-up to your letters through me, and they will certainly go to the administration?
Sure,
to be answered?
I'll start now and see if perhaps they can be answered at this point in time. And if not, then I'll follow up in writing.
Are these new letters?
They're follow-up questions from the
Follow-up
information that was provided today.
I would appreciate if you put the follow-up questions in a form of a letter, and we will pass them on through the administration, and then they will be answered as the questions were answered to you and to the rest of the committee tonight, the follow-up questions you had.
Would it be possible to request that Mr. Franklin come to our next meeting so we can just streamline this process a little bit? Because there's a huge time delay if I have to submit something in writing to you and then they respond and there are questions.
Submit a letter to me, and then we will discuss this. And then I will forward it on, and we'll see if it pertains to him coming to regarding these questions. Thank you, Legislator Andrews.
Okay. I will do that. And I have one last item. It's related to child care. Is because the memo, as everyone probably read today, talked about kind of a surprising, quote, a very interesting turn of events with the decrease in the number of children who are enrolled in 2012 compared to 2011. And it made reference to some internal conversations going on regarding this change, because I think it was unexpected on everybody's part. And so I'd really like to request that specifically child care be added to our agenda next week under unfinished business, so that we can have a full conversation with the appropriate people in the room to explore this topic.
Send a letter through me through the chair, and we will send it to the administration and take a look at it.
Can you just let me know at this point in time if you can add this to the agenda for me? Because
I won't know.
I won't be able to prepare if you tell me just the day of.
Certainly, I answer your letters right away when we get them, so I will certainly answer them.
Well, actually, that leads me to my next point, is just a request to the administration that the letters be answered the day before the committee meeting, if possible, so that I have time to review the material that's provided prior to walking into this building.
That I'll have to take into consideration. So
Thank you.
Send a letter from me. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Seeing none? Seeing none, there being no further business, the May 22nd meeting of the Human Services Committee tonight stands adjourned. The next meeting is scheduled for June 26th at 6 p.m. Thank you. Have a nice evening.